Hello, I'm Neil Abt, Editorial Director of Transport Topics. I want to welcome you to today's Live on Web. We are departing from our traditional format, and instead we're going to bring you some interviews that we shot last week at American Trucking Association's Management Conference and Exhibition. It's the first time that we have taken Live on Web on the road, and our focus today will be some of the future leaders of trucking. A little bit later, you will hear from an elite technician from FedEx, as well as a driver from UPS. Before that, we're going to hear from some of the future executive leaders of the industry. Our sponsors for today's chat are Omnitrax and Dossier Systems. Our first interview today is with Dustin Cole. He's Vice President with Total Transportation of Mississippi. I first met him during the summer, and he asked me an interesting question. What is Transport Topics doing to attract younger readers to Transport Topics? I never had actually quite thought about it in those terms, as opposed to what are we doing in terms of attracting younger people to the trucking industry as a whole. So I thought he would be a good person to start with in terms of what the industry is going to look like moving forward. Let's go ahead to the clip. Okay, I'm here with Dustin. I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with a little bit about your background. You're with Total Transportation of Mississippi. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the company, a little bit how you got started in the trucking industry? Sure.
So currently I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Total Transportation Mississippi, located in Jackson, Mississippi, although I spent much of my time in Loudon, Tennessee and East Tennessee for about 9 years. But I got started with, we'll say, total transportation and trucking when I was in college. I was actually a server at a steakhouse, majoring in finance, never intended to get into trucking, and met the president and CEO of our company. And we just kind of struck up a relationship. He told me that when I graduate to give him a call and that he would have a job waiting for me. So I really enjoyed the guys that he came to the restaurant with and just kind of gave me a picture of what they do on a daily basis and truly how they move America. So I was a December grad and called him up and he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to be a salesperson in trucking. And he said, well, boy, you don't know anything about trucking. He goes, I'll make you an appointment clerk. I said, an appointment clerk? I have a college degree. He goes, I don't care what you've got. You come work for me, I'll put you as an appointment clerk. So he hangs up the phone, and a couple of weeks later, I end up going to work for him, and that's what he did, put me as an appointment clerk.
So the first takeaway is that you don't necessarily need to know a lot about trucking to get involved in trucking.
Correct.
All right, well, that was the case with me too with Transport Topics, so it's good to know it works on the other side. So you were part of the first LEAD ATA graduate program, the first class of first graduates.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about how, especially with the first class, you learned about the program and got involved about the program?
So you'd be happy to hear that I actually learned about the LEAD program through Transport Topics.
All right.
Yeah, a weekly subscriber actually came to my house. My wife and I read it on a weekly basis. We were going to the pool on a Sunday and lo and behold, opened it up, saw the ad, just caught my attention. One, you saw young people for the first time in Transport Topics and saw the opportunity for development, which leadership, engagement, advocacy, and development. So I immediately reached out to my boss and said, hey, I want to do this. And he thought I was crazy at first, but the more he learned about the program and seeing the challenges that the industry was facing of recruiting young people and retaining, he said, sure, why not?
So there have now been a second graduating class, and we heard here at MC&E the introduction of the third class that we figure will be graduating next year. Now you've had a little experience, you're a little removed from the program. What are some of the takeaways as you look back that have been the most useful to you to take from a classroom, from a practice, from something you did that you've taken into the real world to be successful in the industry?
So at Total Transportation, we're at 800 trucks, or approaching 800 trucks, I'll say. When I started, we were about 400. So really over the last couple of years, being exposed to the ATA and the LEAD program opened our eyes to the different resources that they had, whether it was the legislative and regulatory, or opening our eyes to social media, which gave us more comfort and confidence to kind of portray that to the industry and our customers. So really that helped us accommodate some of that growth over the last couple of years too. So great resources for us. We had a grassroots effort with our social social media and driver engagement, we did not know anything about Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, and certainly the ATA and the LEAD program specifically helped us a lot through that.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the driver shortage, also technician shortage. You also talk a little bit about the online world, which we'll get into.
Sure.
It's well established. There's a driver shortage, there's a technician shortage. I wanted to ask you before that, is there going to be a younger executive shortage one day that you're going to have to help solve that puzzle as well? Might that happen?
I think that is real with the executive shortage and the technician shortage too. But I can speak on behalf of just recruiting at colleges across the Southeast and the Midwest, and seeing that many of these college grads, they think of going to work for Amazon or Coca-Cola. And when I speak to their classes or do interviews, I explain, well, you can go work for an Amazon, or you can work for us and work with all these shippers and major Fortune 500 or 100 companies. So it's a really cool opportunity that we have working in transportation to really see how the economy moves and works. And I think once people hear that story, or these young college graduates, they kind of change their mind a little bit. But what we've seen too, when they come into the industry, people like to make fun of millennials, but millennials are bright. They like some autonomy and freedom as well. But we've got to learn in this industry to listen to that voice, because ultimately that's what they want to hear. And I am a part of that millennial group, kind of on the back edge of that. And I catch myself looking at these characteristics and identify with that. I mean, so we really have to listen and engage this millennial group, because that really is going to be the next generation that leads trucking.
And you say listen to the voice, but is part of that voice, you mentioned social media, is part of that voice not actually necessarily an audible voice,
yes,
but a voice that is on a phone or an iPad, a computer screen? Is that a major piece, as you view it, to the puzzle in solving all the shortages and recruiting that next generation of talent?
It really is. I mean, we're in an age or culture that you want information just immediately. And I think when people are on Facebook or certainly Twitter, they get that information quickly. And I'm sure you see that in your world with transport topics. But that's how people, young people or millennials, make up their mind about companies and industries. They want that information quickly. And so as you go work for a company, whether you're a driver or internal staff, I mean, they want to know what your company's doing quickly. I mean, in small bites as well, but we've got to be consistent in that too.
Is it more than just job openings? Is it about helping someone learn about the company culture, about things that you do? I mean, can you expand a little bit more on how social media and just a complete online presence can
Sure.
sort of help shape the company culture, or provide a glimpse into the culture, if you could expand a
so
little
for
on
us,
that.
as I mentioned, our growth, our president, John Stomps, is extremely passionate about the industry and his company, and as we grew, he couldn't talk to every single driver. And so it was important for him, for the drivers to see his face, his tone, what was important for him each and every day or week. So he took it to video. I mean, we did the YouTube, then we did Vimeo, and so now we do it on monthly updates and quarterly updates of just what's important to the company and some of our initiatives. I mean, it's important for him to reiterate whether it's Truckers Against Trafficking or Women in Trucking, whatever the initiative is, that's out to our drivers and they're consistently seeing it.
So if there was a fleet of any size that might be a little behind the times, behind the curve, I should say, you know what, you're right. It's time. It's 2015, 2016. I need to get involved, need to do it. How do I go about it? What do I do? Do you have any advice for an executive that might be looking for a step one in terms of creating this online and social media presence?
Sure. Working for, I'll say, a good old boy trucking company, our management, our leadership was scared of that. A little bit intimidated, I think they would tell you now, but don't be. This is the world we live in. We've got to jump out there, just kind of engage that, and I would reiterate just to listen. I mean, you've probably got some younger people in your company that have some opinions or ideas. Just cultivate that. Just listen. Not every idea has to be perfect, or you have to use it. I can certainly attest that I've had a ton of ideas about social media, but they've probably taken a handful of them, but they've worked out great for us.
And you're listening to people might be a little younger, but have maybe a bit more in tune with some of this online stuff, and have some suggestions how to recruit a friend or a relative,
Sure.
or a younger sibling.
Yes.
So you seem like you may be in the industry to stay.
Yes.
We're in the exhibit hall, which is now open. Everywhere you look, technology, trucks with the latest, some that is still working on to perfect some of this technology. We've talked before. You seem very excited to know, to witness what's happening.
Sure.
When you look out a decade from now, how dramatically different do you think the technology in these vehicles will be, and what role do you think that also may play in solving some of the shortages we're facing?
Sure. So much of that's going to be dictated by a regulatory landscape. And I think you've actually spent some time in an autonomous truck or driverless truck, and that's going to be a big part of it, I think, over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. As we are faced with the challenge of filling these seats, you're going to see probably a younger driver. I think there were some discussions today of the 18 to 21-year-olds. How do you capture that? But first and foremost, safety. I mean, safety is the most important thing in this industry, that you have to be safe first to deliver. So with that, it's just going to be making sure that these younger drivers are comfortable. And I think technology is going to play a big part of that. We talk about these millennials, they like technology, but these trucks, I mean, there's some wonderful technology in this room that we've seen, whether it be brakes or crash avoidance. But I think that's going to go hand in hand with this millennial generation and safety.
Would it be fair to say that with social media and checking in and everyone knowing everything in photos, that some of privacy concerns that maybe an older generation may have may not potentially be as big a concern with a younger driver that sort of grew up with that and are part of that, to say, you know where I want you to know where I am.
Yeah.
I might not have some of the same concerns, but want to embrace that technology and would
Sure.
encourage of that and look at it much differently. Is that fair?
Yeah, so I have a cousin, he's 23 years old, he actually drives for Total Transportation, and he is one of those guys that engages the technology. I mean, we have apps for our drivers on their phones to kind of check in and see their paperwork and things like that, obviously not in transit, as you can imagine.
Obviously.
Yes, but when he goes to a destination, if he's going to the Northeast or Chicago, he wants people to know where he's going and what he's seeing. That's important to him. He wants to see America, and I think if we tell that story to this younger generation, that it's not just driving, there's purpose behind it. You're moving America, you can see the country. That's how you get these new drivers in the trucks.
Okay, well, Dustin, I want to congratulate you on your being part of that first Lead ATA class, and I want to thank you for taking the time to sit with us today on Live on Web.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thank you again, Dustin. I now want to move on to Travis Russo. He is Director of Financial Services for U.S. Auto Logistics. Travis was a member of the second Lead ATA class. He formally graduated and was honored with the rest of the class during a luncheon at ATA's conference. Shortly thereafter, we decided we wanted to put Travis's executive skills to the test by having him join us on Live on Web to talk about the future of trucking. Okay, I'm now joined by Travis Russo of U.S. Auto Logistics. Welcome, Travis. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Travis was part of the second Lead ATA class, the one that just graduated here at the luncheon at ATA's Management Conference and Exhibition. He was at San Diego, last year as part of the second class, and that was the start of the year that culminated
Start
here
of a great
today.
year. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the program, why you joined the program?
Sure.
And if you could tell us a little bit about the progression throughout the year and some of the things you did leading up to graduation today.
I can do that. So for us, or for me rather, joining the program was an opportunity to learn more about the industry and really leverage what ATA has to offer in terms of networks and support at the state and federal level. And our business right now is in growth mode, and I'm relatively new to the industry. So for me, it was a unique opportunity to expand my knowledge and my contacts, and again, to leverage them as I continue to think about ways to grow and continue to manage the business.
You said you're relatively new to trucking. What's a little of your background, how you ended up in this chair today?
This is my fourth year in trucking. Before that, I was in semiconductor industry, consumer products and publishing. So my background is finance and accounting. I was able to utilize that to jump into different industries. This particular opportunity came up a few years ago And our strategy, or our management strategy, was to diversify our portfolio of OEMs. We are a new car auto haul company, and at the time we had about 200 drivers. Today we have around 600 associates. So we've done a phenomenal amount of growth since 2008, really the antithesis of the overall macroeconomic environment, and it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
So as part of this growth, what are some of the secrets you had to growing so much as a company? I know you don't run the company, but
No.
maybe you're a lead ATA graduate now, so you can speak on any topic.
Sure,
so
yeah.
How did this growth happen?
First, we underwent a name change, so we wanted to let our OEMs and our dealerships know that we were not going to be hauling one particular OEM, but rather be agnostic. We underwent that, and after that, we really leveraged the talent that we had in the organization. Without that, we would not be successful. We do believe we have the best drivers in the industry, and our CSA scores would certainly reflect that. And so, again, leveraging the talent that we had or continue to have in the organization and utilizing that to grow the business is what we did.
Now, I know off camera you were saying you didn't necessarily have that much of a background of talking on camera, but you seem to be doing a pretty nice job of it here.
This is new to me.
Well, sure. That's what I guess part of this Lead ATA program is. I know you mentioned that media training, and we saw in the videos that they also showed during the luncheon today. Media training is one example of one piece of the Lead program. If you could talk a little bit, as someone who feels that they're new and inexperienced at this, seem to be working. So why don't you tell us a little bit about media training that went on as part of it?
Sure. So one of the events was media training. We got to learn how to read a teleprompter, for instance.
No teleprompters here.
None today.
Just talking.
That'd be nice. But no, we got to do that. We got to learn, about what to wear, about what to say, what not to say. As an example, no comment is unacceptable, right? And so those are techniques that I didn't have and skills I didn't have before. And now I do, and again, being able to leverage the ATA for that has been a phenomenal experience for me.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Another one I'd like to mention is we got one-on-one time with CEOs. And I report to the CEO today, and I admire him tremendously, but getting different perception from other CEOs helps, because I can use that information, have that conversation internally with my own colleagues, and again, leverage that to manage and run the business. So that was also a unique experience for me, is getting the opportunity to sit one-on-one with these guys, have conversation, pick their brains, what worked, what hasn't worked. You're certainly never 100% successful, right? It's a probability game, and so learning from their past experiences is going to be a huge benefit for me moving forward, and our company.
And just for anyone who might be watching, whether a top executive or someone maybe considering down the road in the Lead ATA program, this is something, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, there's quite a bit of work throughout the year. There are certain set meeting places, like in most cases a conference like this, and it gets blended into the work. It is a commitment, and there are certain ones you seem like you're able to get through everything, and along the way have some pretty unique experiences. I think we went to Arizona for the ATA Summer Leadership Meeting and a couple others. Anything else besides the media training that really stands out as you look back on your year?
Again, I would cite the Arizona trip, where we got one-on-one, we got FaceTime with the CEOs. Mm-hmm. That for me was a really good experience. In addition, learning about all of the things that ATA does at the state and federal level, actually going to the Hill and having conversations with our representatives.
That's something, going to the Hill, you would have
never done
before.
Would never think to do. And talk about just a huge opportunity and an experience where when you're there, you can see it and know how it works. You can speak to it a lot more moving forward, right? And experience is everything. And it was just a phenomenal experience. And I really thank the ATA for giving me that.
I want to change the subject slightly. I've talked with a few other people about social media. I know that's something you're involved with on some level, maybe slightly different than others I've talked to. In the moving forward with whether it be drivers, whether it be technicians, whether it be anyone in a trucking fleet or a supplier, moving towards an online world faster and faster, especially with the younger generation. I wonder if you could share a little bit about what you do for the company involving social media and online, and what role you see is going to play to solve some of the shortages that are facing the industry.
Sure. So as part of our name change strategy, we wanted to utilize all media platforms that we could to get our brand recognition out, right? And so we did that for various reasons. One, we wanted to highlight how great our associates are and how they make us unique and differentiate us in the industry. And so the first step was to really understand what these social media platforms are. You know,
and that's a complicated step on its
absolutely.
own.
And I'm not on Facebook personally. I don't know how to use these things, right? And so it's like anything else when you implement it, plan. And so what we wanted to do is really understand what each platform offered, how they were being utilized by companies today. Was it a media outlet? Was it a revenue generation outlet? Et cetera. And so it was getting that broad comprehension for the management team and then really devising a strategy. And I think we've done that and we've been very successful at that.
So on a general level, a company of any kind, maybe very different from yours, that might be thinking about we need to start on social media and online, or certainly improve it. Do you have any advice that you would give?
I do. So
please. Well, that's why you're here, so share.
Sure. So the first thing, like I said, is getting an understanding of what these platforms are. The second would be, at least for us, trial and error. I mean, you're not going to be 100% successful, right? But know what you're going into, and have a strategy around it. And for us, it was, okay, are there any internal associates that want a development opportunity that we can leverage within the organization to inform management on what these platforms are and how we can utilize them? And we did that. And that gave that person an opportunity to grow. And then from there, we were able to devise incremental strategies where we said, okay, maybe it's time to go external. We've got a lot of acceptance now. We're seeing a lot of traction with these platforms. Our driver community is using it. Our associate overall community is using it. Not only that, but their communities within their communities. So we started to see that grow and proliferate through these platforms. And we eventually made it a dedicated resource. And it just promoted our brand and our people leaps and bounds. So we're very excited and happy with where we are with it right now. And we're pushing, our Live Well, Drive Well campaign through these platforms, and it's been amazing for us.
Finally, at the luncheon today, just where you graduated, they introduced a third class. If you had one piece of advice as they start this year-long journey, which we think would culminate at next year's ATA conference in Las Vegas, what would that be?
It's like anything else. Go for it 110%. You're only going to get in. You're only going to get out what you put in. And my advice to them would be, this is a unique opportunity that's going to happen once in your career. Leverage it. Build your networks. Understand what the ATA has to offer for you personally, and more importantly for your company and your associates, and you will be very successful.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Travis, for taking the time to join us today on Live on Web, and congratulations.
Thanks again for having me. This was great. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis. Next, I want to turn to Eric Voss. He's a technician with FedEx Freight, and last month he was named Super Tech Champion during the TMC competition at their fall meeting. Our interview was filmed in the exhibit hall, but prior to its opening. I want to thank the security staff on hand, as well as the patience shown by the exhibit hall workers in order to help us get this interview done with minimal interruption. For Eric, who I first met at the competition in Orlando in September, he has an interesting story to share about how a change in his own studies led him down the path of a technician, and how he personally views a responsibility of recruiting the next generation to the profession. Okay, I'm here with Eric Voss, the TMC Super Tech Champion for 2015. Thank you for joining us this morning, Eric.
Thank you for having me.
We're in the exhibit hall just after the Sunday morning breakfast, the awards breakfast, where included was recognizing the winner of the Truck Driving Championships, as well as the Super Tech competition. So Eric, welcome. And how was that breakfast? What was it like being up there and being recognized by some of the trucking industry leaders this morning?
It was a nice breakfast. Getting up there on stage was kind of intimidating. Seeing all those people just applauding me and just congratulating me was pretty cool. So I was happy to be here today.
So we'll get into SuperTech in a minute, but let's get a little into your background so people can know a little bit about you. How did you get involved in trucking and become a technician with FedEx Freight?
Well, I started out going to Boise State University. I was going for a mechanical engineering degree, and I decided I didn't really want to sit behind a desk all my life, and I was really good with working with my hands and building things and repairing things. So I went to diesel tech school there at Boise State, and I was working the dock at FedEx Freight while going to school, and I transferred right over once I got my degree, and been working on trucks and trailers and con gears ever since. So,
how long have you been with FedEx Freight in total?
11 years.
11 years. And you live in Boise, Idaho now? We're taping this in Philadelphia. You came all the way from Boise in part to be part of this breakfast today and to be recognized.
Yes, I did.
So what is a typical day like for you as a truck technician for people that might not really know what you might do day to day?
It changes from day to day. I work on trucks some days. I work on trailers the next day, con gears, forklifts. On the trucks, I usually have a lot of electrical issues, more and more. And then preventive maintenance and things like that. Trailers, preventive maintenance, tires, doors, gears. You have a bunch of other repairs, pretty much the same as trailers, except for doors and things like that. So it's different from day to day.
So you mentioned electrical issues that I know the trucks, we talk about it in our programs and our coverage, becoming so much more complex than they were not all that long ago. This is what you do is much more than dealing with tools. You certainly can get your way around there, but there's also a lot of this with the electronics, a lot of computer-related stuff that you have to be familiar with. It's a pretty wide range of skills, I guess, a top technician would need. Would that be accurate?
Oh yeah, that's definitely accurate. I think I use a computer about 75% of the time.
75%?
Yeah, it's quite up there. I mean, when you're dealing with trucks, you're always in the computer. If you have ABS issues on trailers, you're on that. So it's a higher number up there. So it would be fair to say computer skills would be an absolute requirement these days to probably be a very successful technician, besides just in the past it'd be thought of as just sort of working with tools. I would agree, yes. Like I said, using it daily in and out of preventive maintenance, so it's definitely a skill you need to have.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this SuperTech competition. How did you get started in SuperTech?
Back in 2006, my boss really pushed me to go to this competition. So I took the test through our internal competition, and I did very well. Made it to SuperTech. Don't know where I placed the first year, honestly. But that's how I really started. My manager really pushed me to become better at what I do. So, and ever since then, I've been trying to push myself to be better and better.
So you, if I remember correctly, you've done it 9 times now total. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and prior to this year, you finished as high as 2nd place overall.
Correct.
Right. But this year at 2015, which was in September in Orlando, and we're going to put the story up, our coverage. I was there to witness Eric winning. Going to put that up on the screen so people can access it. We talked a little bit about what made the difference this year to go from 2nd place to 1st place. You did some studying, if I recall. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just hit the books a little harder this year, honestly. I mean, I'm really good with my hands and knowing how to repair things, but it's more of using the repair manuals and following each step. And that's what they really look for at SuperTech, to see how you can actually apply your skills following the directions.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the competition? I know it goes over multiple days and there are steps to it. You can tell us a little bit about the actual process of competing in SuperTech.
Okay, yeah, Sunday we have an ASE test, 100 questions. Then we move on to day 2. All the technicians go there, and we start with 12 stations, and they're basically handwritten tests, not really hands-on, but a little bit. Then the top 119 from day one, they go over to day 2. So, and that's where all the hands-on and trucks and trailers come into play, and you start actually working on the trucks and diagnosing whatever station you're working on. So it's a pretty big competition.
So I remember at the end, at the luncheon after it's all over, they start announcing winners. A lot of these individual stations, they announce all the winners of one at a time, and we talked afterwards. You didn't actually finish first in an individual station, but won overall because of a consistent performance.
Yeah.
Were you surprised a little bit as it was going on that he didn't hear your name, and then to also hear your name called as a winner? Was that a little surprising how it played out?
Yeah, it was real surprising actually. I was real nervous when they didn't call my name. I was hoping I did really well on at least one station, but like you say, being consistent throughout the competition is really what pushes you over the top. So it's not worth, or not being 100% every station and winning it. It's actually just being consistent. So that way you have your highs and your lows, but be there.
FedEx Freight did very well. FedEx won the team competition, multiple individual station winners, second place, third place, have had grand champions, TMC SuperTech champions in the past, has performed very well. So there's some very, very tough competition even within the FedEx Freight family.
Yep.
In terms of on the technician side. So there has some good-hearted internal competition going on at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, we have a really hard internal competition. We always jokingly try to beat everybody else. I mean, it's still a competition, but as a team, we are always a team. So, and that's the biggest thing that we try to do. Be a team there, and then support everybody to be a better technician in our company.
Now, being there before the winner was announced, they put on the screen quite an interesting list of prizes for the champion, and many of the individual station winners, lots of very impressive stuff was given out from donations, supporters, sponsors, whatever the case may be. For the SuperTech winner, it was quite a list. I left thoroughly impressed. Is there any one or two that you won from your performance that really stand out in your mind? You want to share and entice other people to get involved over some of these prizes? Yeah,
there was a Snap-on toolbox worth about $4,500 to $5,000. It's a customized paint job on it. It says TMC 2015 National Championship. There's also a trip to Daytona 500 for 2 that is sponsored by TMC, so I get to go there next spring. And then there's also the Dream Garage. It's basically a bolt bin, cabinets, and some rolling drawers, and it's worth quite a bit of money actually. And then you get money to restock it for a year. So those are the biggest, very impressive prizes right there. So.
And how was the reaction back at home with the family, back at work? What was the reaction when you came home as the new winner?
My wife was really happy for me. I have a sign outside of our little town. I live in Parma. It's a real little town community, and they put out a sign saying SuperTech National Grand Champion Eric Voss, and it was real nice to see that, so everybody knows who won. And I'm sure a lot of people don't really know what it is, but it gives them a chance to actually Google it if they have to figure out what it is. So it's real nice to see our community kind of do little things like that.
So I want to turn a little bit to the technician shortage. Well, there's a competition and it's fun and competitive. There is a bit of a larger meaning behind the competition, I know, from TMC side and from the industry side, and that's about this technician shortage. Sometimes we hear about the driver shortage a little bit more. There's no question that there is a technician shortage. And one of the things that came out of the meeting, the TMC meeting, where the SuperTech competition took place, was about getting active about finding technicians, and one of the solutions that came out was discussed, it's not that this was new, but to more actively reach out to schools, even as far down as high school, and really reach out to them directly. I believe that's something you agree with, and I think something you want to get involved with, plan on getting involved with. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I believe that getting out there to the high schools is one of the biggest things, showing that there is a shortage. So basically you can go to college or your 2-year program or 1-year program even, and pretty much walk into a job. I mean, it'll be an apprenticeship job most likely, but you pretty much have a job right out of school. And I know from some friends of mine that have actually gone to a 4-year college and they can't even find a jobs for different careers. So it's kind of nice knowing that after your degree, you can walk right into a job and start making money. So
Is it as much informing students, whether it be high school or a technical or trade school, of the jobs available? Is it also in part helping to show what the job itself is, that it might not be exactly what they're thinking? You talked earlier about the computer skills, to show them the depth and scope and the excitement that you feel that this job can offer.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you need to show them that, yeah, he could walk into a job, but you also have to show him what you kind of need to expect in the job. So moving forward, I think even in high school and college, you actually need to have a technician go. I mean, it's really good to have them actually interact with a technician to actually see what they actually go through on a day-to-day basis. So,
what advice might you give a teenager that might be unsure of a technician, or just really which way do I want to go in life? And I'm so young, I don't need to decide, but they hear about it, he or she hear about it, might be interested. What advice might you give them regarding a career as a technician, especially within the trucking industry?
First thing is, I would say, is you need to decide what you really want to do. Nobody else can make that decision for you. It's your life, so go for whatever you want to do. Next, I'd say, if this is really what you want to do, then put both feet in and jump in and go for it. So,
trucks are changing very, very quickly here as we look in the exhibit hall, which hasn't even formally opened yet. I see some of the trucks around, even from a few years ago. I mean, it really changing very quickly. How do you see the job of a truck technician changing in the next decade or so?
There's so many variables, actually. There's more and more computers coming on each truck nowadays, so you're going to need more computer skills. You're just going to have to stay up with the technology. You're going to have to train yourself. Maybe some companies might train you, but you still need to do your own training as well to stay on top of it. So as far as that, I think that's the biggest thing that's going to change.
I know we're 11 months away from next year's Super Tech competition, but I would guess that you're planning on going back to defend your title. Would that be a fair assumption on my part?
Yeah, I believe I will be going to defend my title next year, so it will be a good competition once again. So hopefully in Raleigh it'll be a little different venue, so hopefully we'll see new technicians there.
So everyone else out there watching this better start studying and practicing today, because you're coming prepared to defend next year.
There we go.
All right. Well, Eric, I want to congratulate you again on being 2015 TMC Super Tech champion. I also want to thank you for taking a few minutes to join us today on Live on Web.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Eric, and congratulations again. For the final interview today, I want to turn to Paul Seville. He's a driver with UPS Freight and a member of America's Road Team. I had the opportunity in July to spend a day with Paul and Bill Lazarski, a longtime driver of nearly 40 years for UPS. We tested out some safety technologies together. I had thought that I was going to be the one a little intimidated by everything I was asked to do. It was, in fact, as Paul shared with you, the drivers, the professional drivers that were much more antsy about the process because of all the safety training that they have. Additionally, in this extended interview, Paul shares some personal stories of his time behind the wheel. Okay, I'm here with Paul Seville, a road team captain, a driver for UPS Freight. Thank you for taking a few minutes to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start with some of the background. Why don't you tell us how and why you became a truck driver and how long you've been doing this?
Okay. It was really kind of by chance. I was actually in warehousing, was a warehouse manager, and really was going in that direction. But the company that I worked for lost a big account, so they just closed that warehouse. So my sales rep at Overnight said, we need help over at Overnight. So I went over there and started there, and just something about it, I knew that I really liked it. And I went out and got my CDLs, and my first week of driving, I knew without a doubt that was what I wanted to do, that I wasn't going to look back. and throughout my just even driving, even soon after that, I just knew that even after my career, even up to this point, is I know that I don't even see myself retiring from driving. I know that someday I got to retire, but it's going to be with a tear in my eye, and that's how much
it's
I
part
love.
of you. It's
Yeah,
part of who you are and what
is.
you want to do. It's not. It's more than just a job to you. It's part of who you are and part of your life. I
Yeah,
guess.
and you know, and when I look back, I really thought that when you know the warehouse shut down, you know, I thought, what am I going to do? And I just had no idea of the path it was going to lead me to and how much I was going to love this.
You reference overnight. That's overnight transportation that was purchased by UPS, and now the longtime LTL that's now UPS Freight.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
So how long have you been driving in total? How many miles has that added up to approximately?
Well, I don't drive over the road, so I drive local pickup and delivery. I've done that for about 17 years. I've been with the company for 18 years. And so I've got about 500,000 miles in the city. And what some of that local pickup and delivery entails is just I have about maybe 8 to 10 deliveries and probably somewhere around that many pickups every day. They could be to convenience stores, construction sites, hospitals, residential areas, warehouses. So I really have to be really mentally prepared every day when I go into work, because I don't know what's going to happen, where I'm going to go. But
is that part of the enjoyment, that it is a little bit different, that you have some predictability in your route, but also it's a different experience every day? Is that part of the enjoyment?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
You mentioned city. What area you driving?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, so you're a road team captain. You're wearing this lovely blazer here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the program, how you got involved in it, and what your experience was like during the active time you were a captain, and how it's been since, when you're a veteran of the program.
Okay, how I really got involved in it was I had some good mentors. And how I got those mentors was I kept asking them every day, you know, what are you doing? And these were competitor drivers. And I guess they got tired of me asking them, and they said, you know, you need to go compete in the truck driving championships. I said, well, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. He said, no, it's not about winning, it's about learning. And you can learn about all the safety stuff you're wanting to know. I said, well, I don't know how to do it. Well, they came over to my yard and set up a course and showed me everything to do. And when I told them, hey, okay, you can practice with our equipment. And they said, no, we just came over to help you. And I realized that day the driver that I wanted to be, and that even though we were all competitors, that we had a common goal, was to help each other make it to our most important
I hear that quite
stop.
often with the truck driving championship. As competitive as it can be, that there's also this camaraderie element that's very beneficial to everyone once everyone goes back to sort of their normal lives once the event is over.
And then so during that process, so now I knew the driver I wanted to be. Going out on my route every day, I went under that sign, that the fatality sign on the highways that said total fatalities last year, fatalities so far this year. And every time I went under it, the numbers would be more than the previous day. My heart would just sink. And I knew it was someone's grandmother or grandfather or a mother, father, or even a child. And I didn't want to go under that sign and that be my family member, my wife or my daughter or my mom, you know. So I wanted to do something about that number. And I went into work one day and I seen an America's Road Team sign on our wall. It says, do you want to be on this team? Fill out an application. And I read what it was about, you know, going around and talking about safety. And I thought, this is my opportunity. This is how I can make a difference in trying to get that number to zero. And I met some road team captains at the truck driving championships, and they told me how to fill out the application, what I really needed on it, and I really kind of already had a start on some of that, but I still needed a few years to kind of build on my application, and that's what I did. So for 3 or 4 years, I just tried to make my application look as good as it could, because even then, I looked at that team and I thought, there's no way I can get on that team. These guys are really.
But here you are.
And yeah, and so once I got on the team, it's just been one of the greatest experiences of my life, and it's everything that I wanted to do. And I've been able to go around and just talk about the safety of sharing the roads with family. I've been able to talk about the image, the essentiality, the sustainability, and it's just been all the different neat things I've been able to do. I think some of the neatest things I've done is talking to kids, and you get them in the truck and you start kind of showing them some of these safe driving techniques, but their eyes really light up when I get behind the wheel. I have a responsibility to look out for other people's lives, but I also set the example of safety, and they may not have driver's license yet, but they learn a lot from the back seat. So when I ask these kids, you watch your mom and dad drive, and you did that up to this point, and were they texting, or are they paying attention, or they all start telling me all kinds of stuff about whether their mom and dad is a good driver, or they're texting, and you realize that they realize that they can tell
They're
them
picking these things up from the back seat.
And I see they realize that they can say, hey, I'm in the car, set a good example for me, but I'm precious cargo. And so it's just those are some of the best moments, to be able to just talk to those young minds and just create a good path of just safe driving techniques.
Whether it be a young child, maybe their parents, or anywhere in between, when you're out meeting at events, showing them the truck, or just speaking with them about what you do and about trucking, what are some of the most common questions, or maybe some of the most random questions that the general public might ask you that you're able to sort of answer for them and give them a perspective on trucking? What are some of those things that most often you're asked when you're interacting with the general public about trucking?
Mostly, so far this year, and I've just got on the team this year, we have 2 different trucks, and one of them is a rolling classroom. So I go in there, most of the questions is, what is this? Mm-hmm. And then so I just go in and explain to them the driving simulator, what all the Trucking Moves America forward, and a lot of them don't know that. They don't. They see the truck, but they don't realize when you explain to them about our clothes, or our camera, our cell phones. That's how we get everything, and that no one wants to be behind the truck. But that's how we get everything. So most of them they just ask what we're there for, and that's my opportunity to jump in and just start talking about really, the Trucking Moves America forward. That's what I really start getting into, because it really covers everything, and whether it is the driver shortage, or it's the image, the essentiality, the sustainability, and the safety of it. And then the other probably most common one is when they sit in a seat. Mm-hmm. How do you get this truck around? How do you do this? When you've seen it from outside, and then you sit, that's one thing. And then when you sit in the seat, that's a totally another thing, because, and I can relate to that question, because, back to when I first started driving in that first week, I did sit at the end of the driveway. Mm-hmm. about 10 minutes looking at my mirrors. Boy, that's a big trailer. But, you know.
It doesn't feel so big anymore.
But yeah, it doesn't feel so big anymore.
So I apologize. I realize you're a current captain. I referenced a minute ago that you had done it once a road team captain, always. I misspoke about that. You're on the current team, so I apologize for that. Truck driver shortage. We know it's there. Projections are increasing how bad it really may be. I guess you play a role in this interaction in the shortage. I'm just wondering if you could share, when you interact with the public, their feedback, if you get a sense from these interactions that you may be inspiring some younger people to consider a career as truck drivers, where maybe they hadn't before they interacted with you, along with just what other thoughts you may have in terms of ways to find the next generation. You're a young driver, even younger than you. Where are we going to find this next crop of drivers?
You know, those are very good points. And I wished I had the answer to that question, but it is a very difficult time for the industry as far as driver shortage. But I do think we are doing a lot of things to attract drivers to it, but there are still some things I think we could do, and some of them as far as attracting the driver. And some of the guys I'm talking to, it's just customers that I went to, and they've asked me about driving. And I say, hey, we'll go get your CDLs. Well, I got to go to school, I got to save up for it. You know, they're throwing out all these excuses. And then I explained to them that, hey, you know, just call one of these companies. Most of them have programs that they will pay for your schooling for you.
Very good point.
And you just sign on to drive with them for a year or two, whatever it is. And I've had some customers do that. And I check, I'll keep in contact with them to make sure ask them how they're doing it, how they're liking it. And most of it, every time they've texted me back or they call me and say, this is the best decision I ever made.
So we need to clone you and put you out there at every job fair and everywhere. That's the answer.
You know, and I don't
figured
know
it out today.
And you know, I don't know if that is something that's really out there, but I do find that's an excuse. I'm saving up for school, and they don't realize that there's a lot of programs out there that will pay for it.
That's an area that will probably grow as fleets search for additional ways to find new drivers, and then also to keep them. Some of this buying into the training, assisting with the training, and probably continued training as they stay on with the fleet. Hopefully, it's probably an area that's going to grow. I would imagine.
And you know, some of the other things is that when we get the drivers on, is just retaining them, and it's just if a driver's coming to you and asking you to go to his son's baseball game or his daughter's dance recital, or maybe even simply to go out with his wife, or if it's a lady, to go out with her husband. If you're making that significant other happy at home, then you're going to have a happy driver at work. And I think it
affects the whole family.
It affects the whole family. You know, if you come home day after day and your kid's sitting on the porch because you're sad because you didn't come to his ball game, that has an effect. So it's important to move the freight, but it's also important to remember that driver has a family. And so, you know, again, there's a lot of things that this industry is doing and moving in that direction to.
It's a process.
Yeah, it is, and they're doing a lot of great things too.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to transition a little bit away from the road team and some of what we've talked about. Paul and I were in Ohio in July at an event involving his company, UPS and Bendix. We were able to test out some safety technologies together. I'm going to admit, the night before, I was sort of freaked out that I'm going to be driving with a road team member and another longtime UPS driver. I'm saying, I'm supposed to get in the truck without a CDL on this racetrack, and I'm supposed to do all this. It was a fascinating day. It was truly one of the most memorable days I've had in the almost 15 years I've been at Transport Topics. So it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, so we could share a little bit about that. Now, it timed with an announcement from UPS where they made the collision mitigation technology standard on the Class A tractors moving forward. So there was a tie-in. We tested more than that. We tested some of the braking, some of the rollover, the collision mitigation. I loved it. Once I got in and I got up the courage, I had a great time with it. You, on the other hand, I was stunned that you were a little hesitant, even more than I was, to get in there, and they said, go, and step on it, and turn, and do these risky maneuvers, I guess, in a very controlled setting.
Right.
But to do this, to test it out, and you had to convince yourself to do it. So I wonder if you could share with the audience a little bit about the day we spent together and the process you went through in your mind about convincing yourself to do it.
Yeah, and I remember that day, and I remember you in the truck, and I remember hearing you commenting, and it was perfect because I was reluctant about doing some of the things that they were saying, hey, go and do. We had the instructor do it first.
Yes.
But
and very detailed instructions in a very controlled environment. There were a lot of safety measures in place, but we had to be a little risky to test the technologies out.
Exactly. So it really went against everything that I've trained and my driving methods. And so that's where I was reluctant at, is that and I mentioned that the guy, the instructor said, you can go faster. And I remember one of my comments was, this is very unnatural to me. And I remember you making a comment about that. And I tried going as fast as I could, but I just wasn't going to go as fast as that instructor. But even then, I was still able to test out these safety features. The vehicle stability system. That was one where we just made a hard U-turn kind of, and the brakes, the active braking would come on and selectively activate certain brakes to prevent a rollover.
Right.
So I didn't do it as fast as that instructor, but I made some
of
them
either,
come on.
And watching it from when you weren't in the vehicle to watch it from the sidelines, you really got a sense as to preventing the rollover. Right. It was a very different experience being inside the vehicle where you could sort of feel it, but then to witness how dramatic the rollover could have been without the additional set of safety wheels to prevent it from going over really opened my eyes.
And one of the most amazing parts of it was when they had that dummy car, and it wasn't an actual car, it was just one made up, looked like a dummy car. And we drove up behind it, I think maybe 35 miles an hour.
I think it was actually 38. I went back and checked, but between 35 and 40, we're going and phasing what looks like a car. Go ahead.
And they said, just keep your foot on the gas and don't let up. And we're doing that. And, I still wanted to hit the brake, but I didn't. And then the truck, the radar saw the car, and then that active braking pushed the brakes for you. And it stopped about 3 or 4 feet before this dummy car.
You definitely crossed that threshold in your mind saying, this shouldn't be happening. It definitely, that crossed my mind. You get past that point where you know something's supposed to be wrong, and then it kicked in. Was that similar for you?
And at any point, I know that I could have taken over. But I let it do its thing, its process of stopping before hitting the car. But I really wanted to put my foot on the brake. But in that sense, that whole demonstration really shows how well those safety features work. But even as amazing as those safety features are, and they're going to save lives. And even that fatality sign that we see on the highways. It's going to make an impact on getting those numbers to zero. But even saying that, using our safe driving methods, that's our primary safe driving tool, which is to move your eyes every 2 seconds, to check your mirrors every 5 to 8 seconds, to look down the road for hazards, to be prepared for those. That's what's going to get you home safe, keeping a good safe following distance. Those are still my primary safe driving methods. And, a good way to describe those safety features is it's like a paratrooper with a reserve parachute. That I'm still going to do my normal daily routine, use my safe driving methods, and now I just have another layer of safety. But I'm not going to make any decisions based on those safety features. For example, if there's inclement weather, I'm going to reduce my speed and increase my following distance. That's the two best things I can do. I'm not going to be able to drive faster because I have these safety features on my vehicle.
One of the takeaways I remember from that day was a feeling that it had confirmed all of the safe training and background, all of that, to actually be risky and let that technology kick in. It's not about if it's kicked in, it's sort of too late. I remember that one of the takeaways as we talked at dinner that evening and digested what we had witnessed and experienced that day. That's all that safety, as you just said, is great, but it really confirmed in your mind everything that you had done leading up to testing these things out.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember the unnatural feeling of it, and I remember that now you mentioned that when I was going around,
it's hard for me to forget
that this confirms all of my training and all of my safe driving methods, and that that's what's going to get me home safe. And
go ahead.
And so that was one of the things that really stuck out to me, is that it just really does confirm all the training that all the companies do to train their drivers, and why we should train and retrain and stay up to date on our training. Just because you get trained once,
the technology changes so fast.
Yeah.
It's changing every year in this exhibit hall. It's so dramatic.
Yes.
What 12-month period, how much it could change. One other thing involved that I took away, and UPS is not alone in this, but we hear a lot about ROI on a lot of the safety equipment and all that, but there are business decisions to be made, but UPS, and you're part of among an elite group of drivers, I guess we could say, that are asked to test this stuff out in the settings, such as an example that we just did, to get feedback from the drivers before there is any investment. To say, we want to know how the drivers feel about this technology, how they understand it, how it can be implemented through the fleet, how you then can take it and say, yeah, we like it, and we know it takes some getting used to, but this is going to work for you. It's going to make everybody safer. It was interesting to interact with you about the way that the company reaches out to the drivers to say, we need your input at the ground level to make sure we're doing the right thing. I just wonder if you could expand just a little bit on that process. I know it's not the first and only time you've been involved in testing safety technologies.
It's some of those, we really do a good job with our safety committees and our involvement in those. We really do talk to a lot of the drivers and get their input. And I would say probably one of the safety, on these safety features, we do have these tractors in the system now. And one of the things that I have went around and talked to a lot of the drivers about is hey, you've got this new truck with these safety features. Did you get training on it? And now there's about half the drivers say, yeah, I got training on it. I know what they are and know what they do. The other half said, no. I kind of started going out and this truck's stopping and I'm not sure what it's doing. So, that's, in finding out some of that stuff, you can go back to the managers and say, hey, we need to make sure that we're talking to the drivers and explaining to them what these new safety features are, and make sure we're staying current
It's an
on
ongoing.
our
This
training.
is an ongoing process. It includes
it's-
drivers. It includes safety managers.
Yeah.
It includes
It's-
top executives making the investments and the decisions.
Exactly.
There's definitely very much a communication loop that has to go on.
Yes, and it has
with-
to constantly go on. You can't just say it one time and in one meeting. It's got to
or make one
constantly-
investment. That
Yeah.
this is a constant process.
Absolutely.
Okay, Paul, I appreciate you taking this time and sharing that story, especially about July. And congratulations on everything you're doing with the road team. And thank you for joining us on Live on Web today.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul, for taking the time to speak with us. I hope to see you again on the road sometime soon. I want to thank everyone for joining us today on Live on Web. Once again, our sponsors are Omnitrax and Dossier Systems. A replay of today's program will be available on our website, liveonweb.ttnews.com. Additionally, you can watch it on YouTube. You can also listen to it on iTunes. Our next Live on Web is scheduled for Wednesday, November 18th at noon Eastern. We're going to look at some of the technology and equipment that will shape the industry moving forward. Our interview guests include Tom McLeod, President of McLeod Software, Derek Rotz, Director of Advanced Engineering for Daimler Trucks North America. And we will be showing highlights from a panel that was moderated during MC&E by our technology editor, Seth Clevenger, with an esteemed panel of trucking executives looking at the future of trucking. I want to thank Joe Terry for his camera work, as well as the TT sales, marketing, and web staff for their support in making today's program happen. I'm Neil Abt, and I hope to see you again on Live on Web.